All right, good evening, everyone. I'll call this meeting to order at 6:02, the Wells Springs Unified Union School District. First order of business is to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second, but oh, sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
I'll second.
Second.
It's Amanda.
Motion by Meredith, second by Amanda. Additions, deletions, corrections. We need to, first of all, our facilitator from the VSBA, Susan Holson, cannot make it in person tonight. So we'll need to remove that from the agenda. And second would be the minutes. Instead of July 7th, it would be July 21st. Everyone should have gotten a copy of the minutes this afternoon. Any additional changes, additions, deletions?
Eric, this is Ryan. Are you referring to the agenda for additions? I broke
Yes.
up a little bit. Okay. I had sent over a document to Chris Bell a little while ago, about 20 minutes ago, maybe longer, that I'd like to be added on.
What document?
It's a letter from some Wells Middletown community members that we'd like to be discussed. I don't know if it's just maybe in the discussion portion or on the agenda.
Pertaining to, I haven't, what exactly is this letter?
I can forward it to you right now. It's pertaining to the math policy.
Okay. Mask policy? I mean,
Yeah.
Are you referring?
It's basically we, the community members, all work together and we want to express some opinions, and we put it in a letter. We'd like it to be discussed in the meeting. I can bring it up during the open forum as well. I sent it at 4:15 today to Chris, and I didn't specify in the meeting that I wanted to add to the agenda until about 20 minutes ago. So
Okay.
a little last minute, but another job was demanding my attention.
Yeah, it's pretty last minute. So if you're wanting to discuss mask issue, I'm just trying to figure out where to place that. So I guess what I'm trying to get at, what's your hopes in bringing this to the board at kind of a late notice, I guess. If
Eric,
it's just,
you have a letter too.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Go ahead, Amanda.
I was just going to say, we have a letter that Chris sent off earlier too that I'm not sure if we should add in from another parent. It was sent at 3:20.
So Amanda, that letter was really meant just, I was forwarding that along as per request. I didn't really necessarily believe it was public discussion. It was just a letter just for board reference.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misunderstood.
So,
okay. If you want to add this letter for discussion, we can put it under new business.
That would be great. I just forwarded it to you as well.
I forwarded the last minute request over to Eric as well. I was getting set for the meeting. That's why I didn't see your email. I apologize. Ryan.
It's okay. It's a lot of last minute things today. So if it could just come up at some point in the meeting for discussion, that would be great.
Sure. Anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda with the changes, please say aye. Raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Meredith, and any no's? Motion passes. General public comment. We have a lot of public online. So I kind of want to do what we did last week. If you want to speak tonight, if you can just open up your chat and just put a number 1 in there. It just kind of gives like a working list, and I'll just use that. And those who are calling in won't forget. And also, I know we had some people who didn't have a microphone. Include those people as well. Okay. Great. All right, April Morse.
Good evening. My name is April Morse, and I am the president of the Greater Rutland County Education Association, representing Poultney, Proctor, West Rutland, Rutland Town, and last but not least, Middletown and Wells. And I would like to again make a statement on behalf of the association. Sorry, my computer is not working. So, the best way to ensure that we can continue uninterrupted in-person learning and teaching and to keep our children, educators, and communities safe is to have our staff, teachers, students, and visitors to K-12 schools masked regardless of vaccination status. We all know that in-person teaching and learning is the single best environment for students, and universal indoor masking as part of a multi-layered approach to combating the spread of COVID-19 is key to ensuring schools remain open. Throughout this pandemic, we have strongly supported the guidance and recommendations of health experts of the Vermont Department of Health, the Centers for Disease Control, the American Association of Pediatrics, the Vermont Academy of Family Physicians, and the Vermont Medical Society and other disease experts. Medical experts all agree that universal indoor masking, regardless of vaccination status, is an important strategy to prevent the spread of COVID-19 within our schools. Universal masking for all students and adults in school buildings can also mitigate the spread of seasonal respiratory viruses such as the flu. Universal indoor masking should continue until all students, especially those under the age of 12, have had the opportunity to be vaccinated. Only one school board in Vermont has succumbed to the political pressure from anti-mask groups. It is vital that all school board members in all school districts respect and support the recommendations of medical experts, not internet-informed ideologues. We know that the main way COVID enters our schools is through community transmission. We've already seen the disruptive effects, the return to remote learning, the closing of schools, of community spread into our schools. Universal indoor masking can mitigate and help prevent further disruptions in the school year. Together with vaccines and proper hygiene, universal indoor masking is a prudent approach in containing the spread of COVID-19. As with vaccine requirements for students and staff, universal masking policies are best implemented with the direct involvement of local education associations. We stand ready to work with you to keep our students and all of us healthy and safe. We must continue to heed the recommendations of the medical experts as we have throughout this pandemic. And on universal indoor masking, the medical consensus is clear. The only way we are going to be able to provide uninterrupted in-person learning and teaching is by following the recommendations of medical and public health experts. A multi-layered approach of vaccinations, proper hygiene, and universal indoor masking of all, regardless of vaccination status, must be taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Husong. Hope I pronounced that right.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I spoke last week as well, and I got to thinking I wanted to address some of the issues that came up after I spoke. And as I'm a community member of Middletown Springs. I've lived here for 30 years. I also happen to be a psychologist who works in schools. And I was really reflecting last week about how many people spoke about how masks were interfering with special needs kids. And I happen to work with a lot of special needs kids. And as a generality, I would say remote learning over this last year and a half, it was probably least accessible for those students and provided the most challenging in terms of our special needs kids. And I really want our special needs kids to access their education, which means keeping our schools open and in person, because they work best in that environment. And as the speaker before me just said, the stats are pretty clear. Mask work is a mitigation strategy and helps kind of mitigate the spread of the disease, and which means that we are keeping our kids, particularly our special needs kids, more likely to be in person. And so I would want to do anything we can do, because the reality is I see this as an equity issue, because if we are not masking, we are actually discriminating against our special needs kids. And so I want to ensure equity for our special needs kids. And the best way we can do that is to keep masks on, and so that we can stay in person for them. And the second issue that I wanted to address was I kept hearing fear being talked about last week, and how masks made kids afraid. Well, the reality is masks don't make kids afraid. What makes kids afraid are things that they can be fearful of. And the Delta variant is raising the fear of parents and teachers and kids. I'm hearing a lot from kids, because we know that it's showing up in the news and the data that it's impacting, that the new Delta variant is impacting our kids more. And when kids are afraid, what we want to do is give them something, give them some agency, give them some control, give them something they can do to help themselves feel safe. And putting on a mask is a concrete way of helping them feel safe. It helps regulate their emotions. It also helps give them a sense of contributing, since they know that they're also doing something to help other people to stay safe. So to me, it was kind of an opposite way of people were using fear around the masks. The masks don't create the fear. What is creating the fear is the disease. And so the masks are a way of helping kind of really give them a sense of agency and control of the fear. And then also thirdly, on my last point, is that as we were talking about it, there was a question raised about who really we were protecting. And it was insinuated that it was about the adults. And I have to say, the reality is we are protecting our most vulnerable. And that is our kids. Our kids don't have any choice. They have no say in people's decisions. But yet they are greatly impacted by adult decisions. And so I guess that to me is our biggest thing. We are a community. Communities are judged not by how we treat the most wealthy, the most rich, the most powerful, the most educated. How we are judged is how we care for one another and how we treat the most vulnerable and the least among us. And so what I'm urging us to do is to use our freedom for the greater good, not just our individualized freedom, to really protect our most vulnerable, our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Haldeman.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just want to support and thank April and Mary for their words. I'm both a resident of Middletown Springs. I do not have children in the school district. And if I currently did, I would be speaking with my wife right now about a contingency plan, perhaps. I'm also a teacher in the SU. And I will say this, that Absolutely. Masks are, they feel like a nuisance to wear. I don't enjoy wearing a mask. I don't relish it. I don't revel in it. I believe some people have grown very accustomed to it and might and feel otherwise. I don't feel that way. It impedes my ability to communicate when students have it on. It impedes my ability to hear them clearly, especially if they're not projecting their voices. I could go on and on and on for why wearing a mask in a public education setting is difficult and problematic. But I'm not gonna take that tact, because I understand that in wearing the mask, I am considering not only my own personal needs for health, I'm considering the needs of the students and the students' families. And because I'm considering those needs, and because I want to value their health and well-being and lives, and the health and well-being and lives of their family members and the community, I will gladly put on a mask before I walk in the doors of the high school where I teach. I will take that one for the greater good, because for me, it absolutely feels like the right thing to do, without a doubt. I was unable to attend the last meeting. I wish I would have been there, but I was able to hear about it a little bit. And I didn't hear that anyone who is bringing forth a proposal to make masks optional was also suggesting that COVID-19 is not a thing. It's not a reality. I didn't hear that. So I'm presuming that everyone believes in the reality of this virus that we are grappling with right now and continuing to grapple with. And my understanding was that the evidence brought forth was anecdotal. And I guess I want to empathize that with perhaps those kids who wear masks develop habits, and that creates a parenting challenge. And I want to honor that. You know, that's a reality in your lived experience. But that's anecdotal, and that doesn't necessarily cast the net wide for everybody, for the greater whole, perhaps. And so I want to end by saying, since I believe it was mostly anecdotal evidence that was presented for why masks should be optional, I'd like to include metaphor. And the metaphor I was thinking about was when I play football with my son in the backyard, and he's not wearing pads, shoulder pads, and a helmet. He's faster, he's more agile, he can run his routes more precisely, and he looks now to me like a little superstar out there in the backyard. But I would never, ever suggest to the football coach or the athletic director that because my son plays better when he's unencumbered by having to wear pads, that he shouldn't have to wear a helmet. But yet he plays better without one. He shouldn't have to wear a helmet because he plays better with that. That would be absurd. And I think we would all agree that that would be absurd, because he would be putting his own health and well-being in jeopardy, and perhaps other people would too, because we know that playing a contact sport like football without proper safety gear it's dangerous enough with it. And listen, none of us are 100% safe against potentially transmitting or catching COVID even with masks on, but we're a heck of a lot safer. Just like playing football with pads on is a dangerous sport, and sadly people suffer traumatic brain injuries. But never would we think about saying, go ahead and play without wearing a helmet. And so I'm going to liken that to the situation we find ourselves in right now and add that to the mix of things to consider. To me, this is a pragmatic decision to wear a mask for the time being until the collective whole says, we don't need to do this, because I believe that the collective whole doesn't want to go on wearing masks forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Grote.
Thank you. My name is Jason Grote, and I am the fourth grade teacher at the Wells Village School. And we had our first day today, and it was great. And one of the best things about today was I was able to seat my students in a U shape so they could start building community. I was able to have my students work in groups. And the one reason that allowed me to do that today was because we were all wearing masks. They keep us protected. I have a small class. I did not have any students complain today about wearing masks. They've gotten used to it. And it's unfortunate that we've had to get used to it, but they have gotten used to it. And they were responsible. They were able to interact with each other. They were able to have conversations with each other, things that children need. If we go back to, if it becomes a situation where masks become optional and students stop coming into class with their masks on, I won't be able to have classes like that. I'm going to have students socially distanced and keeping to their own space. And today worked so well. Another thing I work really hard with my class is on building community. And we learn that we don't just take care of ourselves, we also take care of each other. And that means supporting each other. And right now we have to support each other as a community. We have done so well over the past year. And that's credit to you, it's credit to our students, it's credit to our parents. But we have to keep going because COVID is not over yet. And at the last board meeting, I heard a lot of the parent concerns, and I understand those concerns. But we're keeping people safe, and I want the board to consider that in their decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
A comment here.
Yes.
My name is Carly Burrows. I'm a kindergartner, and I'm also a registered nurse in the department at Rutland. I am not.
Hold a second. Can everyone online hear her?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this okay? Yeah. Okay. So my name is Carly Burrows. I have a son who's in kindergarten at Middletown, and I'm also a registered nurse in the emergency department in Rutland. I want to make it very clear I'm not here as a spokesperson for the hospital. I'm here as a concerned parent. Just in conversations with a lot of different nurses I've worked with, even higher ups at the hospital, I feel that there's this, and I'm not saying that this is for everybody, but I do feel that there is a perception that Delta's not in our community, or COVID's not as bad in our community, or that kids are not being affected nationwide. And I strongly urge you to look at credible evidence. And if you look at the American Academy of Pediatrics, there's been, as of August 26th, there was a 5-fold increase in pediatric cases. Okay, so that's huge. That's something significant. It went from 38,000 cases the week ending in July 22nd, to 204,000 in 1 week in August. That's a single week. That's really significant. I want people to consider that. I myself am immunocompromised. I'm nervous about my son coming home. I'm sorry. I worry about getting sick. I have a 15-month-old that I worry about her. I worry about them going into respiratory distress. I worry about them being the rare statistic that suffers the multi-inflammatory disorder among children. You don't know that it can't come here. And I'm sorry that I'm upset, but our kids are at risk. Variants are rapidly coming up. They're rapidly evolving. They're getting more dangerous. I understand masks are a barrier. I wear a respirator at work. I come home with bruises on my face. I understand. It's hard to communicate with people. Kids can't always wrap their heads around it. But the worst scenario is your kid does become a statistic. They end up in a hospital that is lacking resources. We're understaffed. We're reaching new records of patients in the emergency department. We're maxed out. We're burnt out. Again, I'm not here as a spokesperson from our hospital, but it's bad, okay? It's not, things aren't getting better right now. We're in the worst part, and it could get worse. And I think instead of jumping to this conclusion of either we're going to be in masks forever or we need to take them off forever, we need to take it as it comes. And I fully support wearing masks. I think that there's a million things that aren't great about them, that do not benefit our children, but I think that the benefit outweighs the risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in person who would like to speak? Come up here and state your name.
Heather Thomas. My daughter is in the preschool class in Middletown Springs. We were also in the Wells Village School preschool last year. I don't know why this is even a conversation, to be honest with you, because as Rick pointed out earlier today, like the new motto of the school is STARS, and safety is first. We want everybody to feel safe. So if certain parents or students don't feel safe, then we need to go to the nth degree to make sure that everybody feels safe. Because 6 months from now, 2 weeks from now, everybody's going to be like, oh, all these kids are not in school. Like, they're truancy cases because there's no state of emergency in Vermont because the governor doesn't have a problem with people not wearing masks. I think it's very disrespectful to even consider that people in this community would rather sit on their high horses and not wear a mask than be decent and respectful and make everybody feel safe.
Thank you.
I'm Jackie Becker. I'm the school nurse at Wells in Middletown, and I spoke last week in favor of wearing masks. And really, the only thing that I've seen change since that time is that more medical professionals, I know the Vermont Medical Association just put out a statement recommending masks in school, and the other change we've seen is more Delta variant. So I am speaking with the support of the nurses in the GRCSU, who all request that we continue to mask. We've all worked really hard last year. We've all had to send families home for weeks at a time, and the kids want to be in school. They don't want to be home in quarantine. So we really support doing whatever we can do to keep them home, to keep them here, and keep them safe. And masks is really what one of the tools we have right now.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So
I hear from different parents on both sides of this perspective, and I empathize with all of them, and I believe that every single issue that is close to their heart is valid and real and true for their child. And when my little girl was 3 years old in Middletown Springs at pre-K, she did catch something and she almost died. And she was in Fletcher Allen for 8 days and we almost lost her. And Middletown Springs pulled together and they surrounded our family like nothing I've ever seen before. And I'm just so thankful that she's here today. But no classroom was shut down and no one ever suggested a mask. And that's okay, because all parents weigh a million different risks for their children every single day. And they're very individual. And there are some parents that are weighing the fact that my 4-year-old son can't speak, that he can't say 3 words in a row, that he has a speech problem. I have a teenager that can't hear properly. And so it affects his entire social life because his words come out different. And then there are people that, you know, their children have eczema or they're getting worse acne. I mean, like, everyone has an individual risk and concern for their child that is so real and it hurts so badly in their home. Or their child has anxiety every night and doesn't want to go to school because they're afraid that they're going to get in trouble if they pull the mask down. I mean, but then on the other side, that their child has a grandmother at home, that they're afraid that they're going to bring a sickness home and their grandmother is going to get sick and they're going to kill their grandmother. I mean, all of these are very real and true. And they're all important. And my personal, what I believe is that each parent knows the most important, the things to put at the top of the risk list for their child. And that's why I advocate for parent choice. And then I also worry about the fact, all of the importance that we're putting on the masks. Are we not concerning ourselves as much with sanitizing and washing hands as much as we should, and distancing when we can? Because I know that these children go out on the playground and that is the place where they're holding hands and they're hugging and they're tumbling and they're touching the same slides and they're, you know, they're touching each other, they're breathing on each other, they're laughing as they should. And I can't make sense of how they are somehow safe from COVID, touching and hugging and talking and laughing and literally spitting outside on the playground. But then when they're inside, and it's important for them to hear the teacher and to see her enunciate her words and to learn how to read, when they're inside and it's important that they have to have a mask on. Now, if the state was under an emergency order and everyone needed to wear masks inside and outside, then I don't think that this would be a question. But there are a lot of confusing messages, and then logically looking at it doesn't make any sense. Our children are not protected wearing a mask inside the building and then touching each other outside and running around. I mean, it's illogical. And I think that is where a lot of parents are just frustrated, and we're getting to a point where we're not seeing the real pain, each other's real pain. We're just stamping what our opinion is. So that's all.
Thank you. Okay. Janelle Carr.
Hi, I'm a parent of 4 kids at Middletown School. I just have to voice that this mask mandate is hindering our children. 2 out of 4 of my kids are very much affected by having to wear a mask at school. Especially my special needs child. He has speech problems, he has social problems, and wearing a mask is not helpful for him in the least bit. This is our children's lives, and this is a medical decision. It's not the job of the school or the superintendent to make medical decisions for our children. It's the parents' responsibility to make those decisions for their child. We are responsible for our own children, and we should not rely on the school to make these decisions. Sickness and disease are a part of our world. It's not going to go away, whether we put masks on or not. So I just want to know, when is this going to end? The decision needs to be made by each individual parent for their individual children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Mary Plunkett, and I have 2 kids in Middletown Springs, one in pre-K, one in kindergarten. I just wanted to make a short comment that I think that we're all here, obviously, for the safety of our kids. And I think it comes down to where we think they're safe, how we can keep them safe, and why we believe that way. And I think, touching on, I didn't get your name.
Jody.
Jody, that's okay. Jody was saying before that we believe our kids are safer unmasked outside. And I believe that we're safest masked inside. And although I can't answer one of the most pertinent questions that some of the parents had about if we don't unmask our children now, then when, I would just say when it's safe. But to that, I could also piggyback on the fact that we have a really beautiful community. We have a really beautiful outdoor space. We have a Tinmouth Mountain School that does a lot of their education outside. And so maybe we can grow on that idea that if we're safer or we're happier or we feel more confident or we feel that being outside unmasked helps all of our children, then maybe we can bring the classroom more outside. And then I would just say that's going to take some time, it's going to take some energy, and it's going to take some help from the community. But I would say that it would be time well spent. It would be positive energy in our community. And I think it would help everybody come together. So I know my husband, being a carpenter, he comes home, he's tired, and just wants to hang out on the couch and play guitar with his son, but I know he would be willing to pitch in on a Saturday to put up a couple frames, or if we could piggyback on some of the community members in Tinmouth to see what they've done that works, doesn't work. I think the time is now to utilize that outdoor space, since it's still nice and that we can, maybe that can be a time that we could all come together and feel safe for our kids. So, thanks.
Thank you. Sherry Lampman.
Hi, I just want to add a couple of things to a comment that was made a short while ago, that it's not a school decision, that it's not a district or superintendent, that it is a medical decision. And on Tuesday, 4 medical organizations, the Vermont chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, Vermont Medical Society, the Vermont Academy of Family Physicians, and the University of Vermont Children's Hospital, all issued a joint statement urging continued universal indoor masking in schools, regardless of vaccination status. I wear my mask gladly at school. I have allergies. It makes me crazy how my nose itches all day. I wear my mask to Shaw's, to Price Chart, to Supply. I have a 10-week-old grandson I've never held without a mask on. And I think that it's the least that we can do. It is a medical decision. And 4 medical agencies in the state of Vermont issued that statement yesterday, August 31st. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see anyone else in the chat who wants to speak. Is there anyone on the phone who called in who wants to speak?
Eric, you have Susan Chickarelli raise her hand.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, Susan Ciccarelli.
Oh, hello. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh, let me lower my hand. Okay, thank you. My name is Susan Ciccarelli. I spoke at the last board meeting as well in support of wearing masks. And as Sherry spoke just before me here, yes, the American Academy of Pediatrics, as well as the American Academy of Family Physicians, have come out with a position statement, as well as the American Nurses Association, to support wearing masks. I grew up at a time where, there were seeing the effects of exposure to rubella, polio. This is unprecedented, I feel, for a lot of people that didn't grow up in that time. I was nursing where people were having diagnoses with HIV and AIDS, where we had all sorts of personal protective equipment. And, when I hear these physicians and they have position statements and the data that shows that wearing masks, hand washing, social distancing, these are all tools in our toolbox to keep our children, our grandparents, our parents, our neighbors safe. And this is very unprecedented, but as we work together, eventually the masks can come, as well as being vaccinated, adults being vaccinated. That's a great way to protect our kids. If you as parents, aunts, uncles, and that everyone get vaccinated, and that will help. And as soon as, the pharmaceutical companies finish reviewing their data and the FDA comes through with this, we will have kids under the age of 12, eligible for vaccination. And I really feel we need to hold on, hold tight, hang in there with this. Kids are valuable, all life is precious. And we need to stick together and keep that in mind. Today was the first day of school, and I had students come up to me. I work as a school nurse, and several students thanked me for keeping them safe. One student said, "I don't like wearing one," referring to a mask, "but it keeps my mom safe from the mouth of babes." Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Mayette. Lisa?
Hello. I'm rather loath to speak.
Lisa, you're muted.
Hello?
Hello?
Thank you. I'm sorry. I appreciate the time to speak. I'm very uncomfortable in public speaking. However, I believe that after seeing the students share a community meal, and they were the best ever. We had students from 5th and 6th grade help serve and flow the line. They walk in, fully hair pulled back, right up to the washing hands, 20 seconds, put the gloves on, the masks on, they go over. They are servers for life, and I felt honored to be working aside with them. However I feel about vaccinations or mask wearing, I think at the end of the day, I am humbled and educated by the very students we work to serve, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Want to follow up the letter right after this, since it's on topic?
Well, we put it under business, so.
I understand. Rather than revisit the discussion, just, add public comments, but just, have the letter introduced at this point, since we're talking about masks, what your thoughts are.
No, we already approved the agenda, so.
Okay.
Meredith? You're muted.
I just want to make a brief statement that masks are not the only part of this. As was mentioned, hand washing, some distancing, inside, outside, all of that. Plus, our board has discussed a lot about as much education outside and offline as possible in our attempts to continue to recover from this pandemic. We realize the kids need to be outside. They need to be off their computers. And the way to do that is with the masks in the class and no masks outside, at least for now. We have to follow the science. And I just want people to understand that there's been a lot of discussions that happened at previous meetings about this. This meeting and our most recent one were not the only times we've discussed these things. So I just hope families will understand that there is so much more to protecting the kids than just wearing masks at school. Thanks.
Ryan?
Thanks, Eric. Sorry I'm late there. I just, I hear where everybody's coming from too. And as a mother, my kids come first. And I know that that's one thing that we can all agree on that. So I really hope we can all agree on at least something. Our kids do come first. But I'm going to echo Jody when she talked about, I was so happy to go to school today, and it was such a great feeling to be with the community and to be with everyone, to see my kids hug their friends. It's just really a lot of mixed messages. This whole no mask inside versus outside. I have to tell you, it's really frustrating. I watched my daughter hug every single one of her friends today. I watched teachers come hug her. They were serving food. We were all together. It's just really, and like Jody pointed out, we don't have a mandate right now. The governor has not come out and said, yes, everybody mask up. This is how it's going to be. So I feel as though I feel safe sending my kid up there, and everybody else seemed fine having their children around. I've seen these people having birthday parties, everything else. I just don't, what is so different about the school building as opposed to everywhere else? What is it? I think that the points about the sanitizing is accurate. I saw several kids, I'm pretty sure I saw one licking the slide today. Are we going out there and wiping down every single surface that they touch outside? What is so different? I'm not saying that masks may not be useful. I'm not saying that masks are wrong. I'm just saying it's very conflicting. And I just don't understand what the huge difference is. I think we need to focus. I'd ask, can we spread the desks out? Can we put the plexiglass back up? Can we do things in the classroom? Yeah, wear the masks in the hallway maybe. Can we meet in the middle? As a board member, I wasn't asked my opinion on these things. Somebody mentioned earlier that they want to work, I think it was April said, work with us to keep students healthy and safe. I haven't been asked via survey as a parent or a board member what my thoughts and opinions are on any of this. So as far as working with the community, I don't really see how that's happening other than us all voicing our concerns right now, because up to now, we haven't really been given an opportunity to talk about this and figure out ways that we can try to come together and make this work for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I would like to keep it to just one comment. Otherwise, everyone will just keep wanting to talk and talk and talk. The board does have a pretty full agenda. So if nobody else wishes to comment who hasn't already spoken, this is your chance. All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Approval of the minutes. Everyone should receive the minutes for the 21st this afternoon. Motion would be in order for approval of the July 21st minutes.
It's Amanda. Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
This is Courtney. I'll second.
By Amanda, second by Courtney. Any changes?
I didn't see any.
I can't remember. George, are you clerk? You're clerk. Huh? Well, it says Amanda, and I just like for the record to be accurate.
Where are you seeing my name?
I believe he is clerk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, yeah. So we just need to amend that.
Yeah. Okay. There's no other changes. All those in favor? Approving the minutes. Please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Motion passes. Approval of the warrants. We have 4 warrants on here. You had any questions about those ahead of time? You could contact Lewis. Can I get a motion to approve the warrants?
I'll make a motion to approve the warrants.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion by Courtney, second by George. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Motion passes. Superintendent's report.
Thanks, Eric. I'll be brief since we do a full agenda. Most of the report is items I have previously discussed. We do have a copy of, in the packet, the ed recovery plan that was discussed at the July board meeting, but you've not seen that. But so Lisa did a nice job presenting that, and going through just going over our initial steps. It gives a nice overview. We will be providing quarterly updates with that as well as we move through the year. So we will bring that back to a little bit more level to discuss. And I know that Lisa and I have talked about while we will present the GRCSU, have a small presentation for the report as well, not just a package moving forward as we get the year. Yeah, there is a copy of the, my recommendation, which you're all well aware of. I think we heard that last week. in terms of the opening of school, which we went through today. I've also included in the package just a copy of last July, the admin retreat that myself and Lisa Manson conducted with the admin, just kind of looking at some of our focus goals as an admin group around the areas of instructional leadership, growth, academic, personal, social, emotional, as well as just the notion of equity. And when we talk about equity, really we're looking at how do we ensure that every student in our SU in our schools has access to high quality education. That's our primary focus. So we have to look at whether it be a student with an IEP of 504, a student whether it be in Wells Springs or Middletown, Wells Village, Middletown Springs, I apologize, that they're all having access to high quality education, high quality instruction. So our main points of emphasis this year. Lastly, I didn't make it down today. I did the northern half of the SU today. Tomorrow, Lisa and I will flip. She'll do the northern half of that. But I heard from Lisa that first day of school went well down here. That it's great to see the kids back in the building. I will be down tomorrow. I do look forward to seeing, seeing the staff, seeing the students, seeing the admin, and working on just making sure it's a great year. So thanks. And I'm sure Rick and Liz will be more tell you more about the first day of school.
Any questions for the superintendent? Okay. Principal's report. Who wants to go first?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So you have received my report in your packet. I did want to highlight that, yes, today was the first day of school. A lot of energy. It was wonderful to have everyone back. And I think those who just pivoted all day long to try and help out, with younger kids coming in who hadn't been here before in our kindergarten classroom, and just really making sure that everyone had what they needed. Kids were happy. It was a wonderful day. Seeing them outside was just enlightening. So if there's any questions about my board report, I'm happy to take them, but I'm just really glad to have everyone back in. Thank you.
And Middletown Springs, once again, we had a great opening day. We modified things. In the past years, we've had a great community breakfast in the multi-purpose room, but it was outside. Usually we have a group activity, but we dispersed the kids to the rooms and brought out the new PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Support, about our new acronym STAR, which is safety, trustworthy, acceptance, and responsibility. So it was
You.
The boardroom is muted.
Anyway, we had a great first. Thank you for pointing that out. So so we had a great first day, and it's good to see kids, staff. I want to just celebrate what a great pre-K and K through 6 summer program. It's longer than what it was in the past, and great comments from the kids and parents, and a lot of great energy that I really think will bring into the start of the school year, friendships and kind of return to normality. I did add to my report, and this is kind of would be the same thing for Middletown Springs and Wells. Both schools, I like to really proud of the fact that we're collaborating together, and we really are a kind of a combined school in the sense of working together. We have a lot of great things happening in both schools this year, and what I have given you is like it says Middletown Springs overall initiatives, but it really is pretty much the same for Wells. So we have a lot of different things. I'd like to think a successful school is really like a three-legged stool. You have academics, you have social emotional learning, and you have on creating that learning of positive behavior of students. I think all those things together create that really kind of learning environment you want to have for your students. We have a lot of great things happening. What I did was we actually have we have five different things going on, and I put it arrows to from each one of those going to academics, social emotional, and behavior. it looks like quite a lot, but really it's kind of dovetailing in together, and part of it is like leadership between Liz and I of helping support teachers.
There's a lot of connectivity. We've shared it with staff and had some debrief about it, and we're really looking forward to collaborating more on some of the components that we can collaborate that are not individualized by school. It was a great way for Rick and I to just lay out everything that we know is going on and how we can prioritize it, and really it gave us an opportunity to know more about the trainings and how we need to, what we need to do in order to take on that instructional leadership piece to move this forward. So we're excited about it.
And one of the focus of the end service was University Design Learning, which provides opportunities to kind of intuitively create that learning that kids can fit into the learning. So I think it's a very exciting, and it all kind of connects together. So I think it's going to be an exciting year. I'm so pleased with the staff, and kudos to those for everyone for the upcoming year.
Any questions for the principals? What is exactly a social emotional screener?
So part of the AWARE grant, we'll be having information going out to the parents. So it's just like a check-in to see where everyone is, kind of gauge. It's not personal information, and it's just a way to see how the students are at the beginning of the school year. The plan is to do it 3 times a year, and to see what we're doing. Really want to be making informed decisions based on data. So if we're seeing that certain groups of kids or levels that need extra support, we can adjust, and that kind of goes into the WARE grant, which
and the supervisor union is also looking at that as well. So it's a benchmark that will be used 3 times a year for us to determine gaps that where we can be better supporting kids, and how our practices will change to support them.
Okay. And then are both schools be fully implementing jump rope?
Yes, that is the supervisor union expectation. We are working on that with teachers. Spent some time talking about it yesterday as well. So information will be coming out to parents about how to access the portal. That'll come out in our newsletters in the coming days. So more to come, but yes, that is what we will be doing.
Okay, great, thank you. Amanda?
I was just wondering, Rick and Liz had a chance to discuss if we would be sharing newsletters between the schools. I didn't know if Wells would be seeing kind of what's going on in Middletown with their newsletter and vice versa, or if that hadn't been decided yet.
We've talked about that before at a previous board meeting, correct? I feel like, yes. I mean, we do.
I just wasn't sure if it was happening for this year or not.
Well, we've been sharing like between the schools, but I think that's a great point of being more, I guess, the word's not transparent, but try to share more about what's happening in each school. So I think that's a wonderful suggestion. So.
Anyone else? All right. It's got off easy on the first day of school.
Happy for tomorrow.
Yeah. Finance. Louis.
Good evening, everyone. So included in the packet was the year-end financials. The year has been closed and reconciled. Wellsprings ended the year with a surplus of $210,642. In my report, I've highlighted some of the significant variances that resulted in that surplus. Some of the items are specific to COVID, and others are just one-time variances. So I'll just go through some of the major variances that we had. We had $6,000 more in tuition revenue that we budgeted. We had received approximately a $9,000 surplus from the SU. as a refund. On the expense side, we received a $69,000 special ed assessment refund, and that's due to a surplus in the SU special ed fund. We had $95,000 in tuition savings. I believe a majority of this is COVID related. We saw last year that a number of parents decided to keep their students home because of COVID related reasons. And so they either homeschooled them or they were pre-K and they decided to put off pre-K for a year. So those tuition savings resulted in $95,000 in surplus. Our special ed disallow was overspent by $17,000. We had $20,000 in Kelly sub savings, and this is mostly due to COVID. We were closed 1 day a week on Wednesdays, so we used less subs. Plus, Kelly did not have a very large sub pool for us to pull from, so there was a lot of days that we had unfilled positions. So therefore, we had savings in that area. We had $13,000 in fuel savings due to a contracted lower price. I had went out to bid last year when the prices of oil was still lower. So we did lock in our fuel price at $1.65. We had $18,000 in food and service expense was over budget. And then we had $10,000 in supplies and dues fee savings and $23,000 in salary and benefit savings due to unfilled positions, unpaid leaves, and limited extracurricular and co-curricular activities. So when we look at budgeting for next year, we'll decide how we want to utilize that surplus. The main options, the two options would be to either refund the full amount to the taxpayers, which will offset our education spending, or we could put items on the ballot to ask the taxpayers to put that money into a capital improvement fund or spend it in some other way. Any questions?
Yeah, the capital improvement fund, is that correct? I thought we had approved
So that is correct. We had planned on spending that last year, but due to the size of the surplus, we decided, I spoke with Liz and we decided not to utilize that money, to keep it in the fund and pull the money from the current year repairs line because that was underspent.
Okay. Any other questions for Lewis? Is that it, Lewis?
That's all I have for the financial piece, yes.
Okay. All right. Contracts. Oh. Did all the board members receive the latest contract recommendations this afternoon?
Yes.
So we can what's the pleasure of the board? We can do this in two separate motions or one?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, my computer wasn't pulling up. I just saw on there that we were offering to pay a coach, and I thought our coach was a volunteer position, not a paid position. I thought an athletic director was a paid position. So I'm just curious about that one.
So Amanda, I can answer that for you. A couple of years ago, the co-curricular committee decided that they were going to establish pay scale. Rick and I have both served on that, and then it will be enacted upon at this point if the board approves for this contract. So it was something decided on back in, I don't remember when we finalized, but it was something that the committee had put forth and was reviewed by the
It
board.
was in March of 2020.
Thank you. Yep.
And, right, the board accepted the pay scale.
Yes, and we didn't use it last year as there was no sports offering, so that's probably why we hadn't seen this yet, so.
Okay.
I wonder if that might help us get coaches if people knew that there was a pay and it wasn't a volunteered position.
That's a good point. We've been advertising social media. Say that again?
The secret's out.
All right. What's the pleasure of the board?
I would move to approve.
Approve support staff and extracurricular in one motion?
Yeah, I'm not.
Yes, Meredith?
I can wait until the motion's finished. I just wanted to discuss one minor thing about the list.
Okay. All right, motion by Amanda, is there a second?
I'll second. This is Courtney.
And Amanda, is the motion to approve contract recommendations as presented, or?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Motion by Amanda, second by Courtney. Discussion.
I just wanted to ask, did we change athletic coordinator? Was it an athletic director before, or I imagine there's a reason we're calling it that, or maybe there isn't.
We didn't change the title.
So what is it listed as?
Athletic coordinator.
I think that could be an error on my part. I don't see any difference. Athletic director.
I don't know if there's a difference either. I just know we've called it that before. I'm not sure, because this only really became a formal position when we merged, so.
Right.
So I would call it athletic director. I'm not sure. It was unintentional.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Just want to have it straight, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Any further questions?
I just have a quick question. It seems like there's a lot of after-school help for Wells Village School, which is great. You must have a really great after-school program. Do we have the same?
So at this point, I have one person for the after-school program. I need to put a contract in for the pre-K position, but I don't have one for that. I'm still looking for another after-school person for the K through 6.
Okay, so you have just Cheryl right now, and then you're
Right
looking for one
now,
more
so,
person.
but we're gonna cover somehow from staff, and we'll make it work.
Right, and so some of this is also, there is an extra, it seems like a lot for Wells Village, but not everybody's available every day.
Right.
So it's more or less to cover,
Every single day.
and pre-K as well. So, yeah, just fortunate to be able to.
Oh,
have it.
yeah, pre-K.
Right, so not everyone will be working every day.
But just for the board, I've had a advertisement in School Spring since the 1st of July.
Yeah, I feel like Liz should share some of her people with us.
So no, I've reached out to the college, I'm looking for some great college students, but I do have a great person for the pre-K after-school program. I'm really excited for that this year.
What is early arrival supervisor?
So we have early arrivals, so we have students that arrive at 7:15. It's really a great resource for parents, especially going to work, so it's coverage for that half hour.
Okay.
Since we don't have bus full of kids arriving, we've got parents coming in at all different sorts of times at Middletown.
We've had that since I've been at Middletown, so it's been a.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If there's no further questions. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Is that with the adjustment of athletic director?
Yes.
Okay, aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Old business. Telehealth update.
Sure. I know Jackie, she's there too. So I'll start off, Jackie can fill up a little bit. So I know last year, obviously with, COVID, things, kind of shifted the telefocus just a little bit. I think Jackie's done a great job staying in touch with HVAC for community health, as we're kind of ramping that back up. And I do believe currently we're looking at get the equipment in the building and build out capacity, correct? So, so I think there's more to add to that. You've been talking with Dave.
Yeah, just wanted to get new equipment, we won't have that yet, and then, we'll check on that and just have to push our solutions again and do some marketing of the offering.
Okay. And once we have the new equipment up and running, we'll get the information out to families right away, just so they're aware that we do have telehealth available in school. Thanks, Vinny.
Any questions on the telehealth update? All right, solar contract update.
I could provide an update on that. So we received our first credits 2 months ago. So far, we've received 2 months of credits, and we just received actually today our first bill from the solar company SunWealth. So the way it's working is we're receiving a credit on each of our GMP bills for our solar credits, and then SunWealth is invoicing us for 89% of the total credits, so our savings are 11%. I will be tracking it so that I can report each year how much we've saved.
Great, thank you. Any questions? None? Great. All right. New business. So the board should have received, we have a student tuition request. Actually, it's actually not tuition. That's a mistake on the agenda on my part. The board should have received some information this afternoon to review, and basically we have a request for room and board for a student who will be participating in early college program. And well, first, did all the board members read the letter and get the letter?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess if you've read the letter, we'll just open it up for any questions or discussion. If I try and explain it, I'll probably mess it up. Okay. That's fantastic. Well, I guess if you wish to speak about it, you can come up and speak about it.
All right, hello, my name is Philip Mahar. I am a senior at Rutland High School this year and also a freshman at Vermont Technical College up in Randolph. And I am in the FAST program, which is an early college program to combine my senior year of high school and freshman year of college. I am in the electromechanical engineering program, and I chose to do this program because, one, I want to get into the workplace faster, and second of all, I didn't want to waste time in my senior year doing filler classes that wouldn't help me advance towards what I'm interested in. So by going up to Vermont Tech, I'm able to do classes that help me understand what I'm getting into better and prepare me for the workplace.
Thank you.
Can we make a motion to approve this?
I'd still like to ask some questions, but I guess you can make a motion if you want.
Well, yeah, we can, I think there's much to discuss on the matter itself.
I wanted to understand better Act 77 and flexible pathways and our obligation as a district. I don't know if that's something Chris can help us with.
So yeah, Act 77 flexible pathways, the early college program is part of that process. It's one of the options. One of the language does state tuition-based expenses that regards around flexible pathways. And so in this particular case, if Mars were asking for tuition for this, then it'd be something I do believe the request is for room and board, which in speaking with our legal, that's the Act 77 doesn't necessarily cover a room and board along those lines. So,
Can I add to that as a parent? Okay. Within Act 77, there's also Chapter 27 that does specify for certain students that room and board can be, based upon board decision, allowed to be paid. In the state of Vermont, equity is a big thing. A number of students might choose to do early college at Castleton and then live at home and commute. But as a result of his interest in engineering, there is no engineering program in this area. Students that live in the Randolph area or near Norwich have the capacity to commute and live at home, and the family does not have to expend the cost of room and board, which is roughly $12,000. Currently, if he stayed at Rutland High School, this board would have gotten a bill from Rutland High School, and they would have had to pay roughly $15,000. As it stands, his tuition money, I believe, and legally, we've spoken with people at the university level, we've spoken to people at the Board of Education level, that this money should follow our students. That is the purpose of Act 77 and Chapter 27. And this is where the state of Vermont is trying to provide these flexible pathways and better equity so that students that don't live close to an engineering program can gain access. As a result of this cheaper bill that Vermont technical colleges would be providing to the school districts, it is still at a savings compared to the bill that Rutland High School would have provided. So it's a savings either way, and I believe since the board, thank you for your time and efforts, is here to support our community and our students, this is exactly what we're asking you to do, is support our students in the sense that his tuition dollars that come from our taxpayer dollars that we pay to this district should follow our students. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that might come up.
What is the room and board charge?
Roughly $12,000. So it is cheaper than his year at Rutland High School.
$12,000 for the year. Thank you.
Eric, this is Louis. The piece that I'd also like to add that I think the board should know that is for when students are enrolled in high school as well as elementary schools, we receive ADM credit. And that ADM credit counts towards our equalized pupils, which then is what is used to calculate the tax rate. When students are enrolled in early college, they're unenrolled from high school, and so we will not receive that ADM credit. So therefore, we would have the in this situation, we would have the expense without the revenue side. So if the student remained at Rutland City High School, we would receive ADM credit, which would be the offset to the tuition that we're paying. But if they're unenrolled, we're not receiving that ADM credit.
Louis, what does the offset represent? Like how much?
It's it's the equivalent to the yield.
Right, so 10, 11,000.
So it's about $11,000.
Right. So it costs us money.
Correct. When the student is enrolled in a high school, then the ADM credit of the approximately $11,000 is offsetting our total costs. So in this situation, we would have the cost without that offset.
But we would still be paying then, what, $3,000 to $4,000 for that student to attend Rutland High School.
Correct. I mean, the calculation isn't exactly that. It's a dividing factor. You take your total expense divided by equalized pupils to get a tax rate.
So I'm trying to understand how flexible what our obligation is for flexible pathways. I mean, I understand you're saying tuition, but is that, it doesn't sound like it's another great idea that came down from the legislature to create opportunities for our students without actually covering all the bases. Is that what, has someone spoken to our attorney about that?
Yes, I've spoken with our attorney as well as another attorney, Bill Ellis, who's assisted us in other cases about this. Liz and I spoke with both of them, and their advice is that, well, does say may, but they said they're worried about the setting precedents. In our SU, we do not currently at Torrey Valley, for students enrolled in early college program, not pay room and board for any of those students. There, so it is just tuition-based expenses that we haven't done. And while as far as correct, that there would be on paper a savings, but it's that there's a slippery slope. We just have to have open. We set a precedent for future rulings in terms of non-tuition related expenses related to early college or flexible pathways or voucher programs. So like I said, the legal advice is for us to just stick to statutory language around tuition-based expenses.
Can I ask a question?
Amanda had her hand up
Oh,
first.
sorry, go ahead.
So I guess I interpreted the letter as the student would be attending high school as a senior as well as attending college courses. So if they are attending high school as a senior as well, why would they have to unenroll for us to lose that money? Wouldn't it just be additional education?
They're not attending high school. It's early college. It's a state program. So they get unenrolled from high school at the beginning of the year. They attend only college classes. And then at the end of the year, they're re-enrolled in the high school in order to graduate and get a diploma.
Okay.
Jody?
I'm sorry, I didn't read the whole letter. It may have answered the question, but is Philip paying, are y'all paying tuition for him to go to the school? Did he get a scholarship? Like, who's paying the tuition?
State pays part of the early college. State pays.
Okay, because you were saying that in this Act 77, you can allot the money to the tuition, but not the room and board?
Correct. Language states, all language states tuition based, money towards tuition.
But he's been awarded scholarship money. I guess when you qualify for the program, it becomes tuition free for the student.
Okay, so he got a scholarship. Correct. For the tuition portion. Okay. And, okay.
My piece with the lawyers suggesting that we hold the line is that does not take into account this Chapter 27 that does open the door for the board to make these decisions, to provide equity and accessibility to students. And I know past practice is what you're trying to stay with, but do we want our district to just be part of the past and not looking for the future, which is equity for all students in the state of Vermont? So I would implore the board to look at what is the best decision for the students, not necessarily what is legally the best past practice.
So I I understand, and I think as we discuss this, one of the things as we look here, well, we think $12,000, what if a student has an opportunity to go to, say, Paris, and, room and board is now $60,000, and we have established precedent, so therefore, a parent comes and asks us the same thing, it's like, it's an unbelievable opportunity. We have paid, the room and board for your son, why are we paying for this? And that's the issue that we have here, is we open this up, we stay with tuition based, then it just sticks with tuition based, and not to get into the gray area.
But the legal lease in the state of Vermont actually does already have the door open for you as a board to make the decision.
It says
And Paris is far off. This is staying within the state of Vermont.
I understand, but there are a lot of great opportunities out there for a lot of our families in a variety of other areas. I think what you said is the fact that our attorneys have advised me to advise the board, and it's a board decision, is the fact that when we have set that precedent, then it's very difficult. And it does say may, but may gives flexibility, but as you allow for one, you have, it's very difficult not to allow for others. So that's just it. I'm passing this on. It's more, it is the board's decision. It's not my decision. I'm just merely just pass information along to the board.
Amanda?
Sorry.
Would it be appropriate for us to, I think that we should do something for this family, but I'm not sure if maybe it wouldn't be more beneficial for us to put a policy in place saying that we will pay up to X number of dollars for every family for here on out, because the next family, like Chris said, the next family could be $50,000. This family's 12. We need to put a cap on it somewhere, and even if we can't cover their whole 12, if we come up with a dollar amount that we can cover, something's better than nothing. Is there a way we can do that?
We discussed that with legal as well, and they advised us not to go that route.
I mean, even if we did go that route, we're also looking at 11,000 less income. So it's more than just the 12. It's complicated.
Right.
Jody?
So if Phil were to do this program and he, his parents paid the room and board, he's not enrolled in RHS anymore. So we're not getting, whatever Lewis mentioned, we're not getting
We're not getting the OC.
the rebate. What happens to his student allocated, whatever it is, $15,000? It remains within the school district budget, or what?
Lewis, did you understand the question?
I think so. So, I mean, we budget based on an estimated number of students each year, but we know that's a fluid number. Students are coming and going each year. So, we budget for current students, and if it's a good budget cycle, then we may throw in an extra student or two, because students move each year. So his money that would have been allocated for Rutland City would just stay in the budget to cover another student that may move in. It's not allocated for the specific student. It's a school district budget for any students that are attending those public schools or private schools that are allowable.
Right.
Ryan?
I was going to ask that as well, so thank you, Jody. And it sounds to me like at the end, the allocations would probably balance out. I think it would be nice to see this kind of change take place, because we have an individual that wants to go out into the workforce, and I think that is something that we should look at going forward, because we need that, and he's clearly showing that. And I agree to spend his high school senior year taking filler classes and basically wasting his time doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'd kind of like to see us think ahead on this and think of what the future could bring. And if someone does come to us with a request to go to Paris, I think we would talk about it again, and we would probably have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, Meredith?
I would love to see us support this program, but it does require some sort of policy, and it isn't a simple policy. And unfortunately, even case by case, it's not simple. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen, but it would have to be a very all-encompassing tight policy because of the potential for it to be taken advantage of. We already are taken advantage of continually in our choice district. And, you know, I wish it was as simple as only students that attend Vermont programs would qualify or something like that, but that can even be taken advantage of. So I really do caution simply saying, let's do it for this one time, because there's too many open ends.
Amanda?
Could I make a motion to consider this recommendation and make a policy and have an answer to them by our next meeting? Potentially, we could have a special meeting to go over a policy. So my motion would be, let's make a policy.
Okay.
Policies typically aren't made in 1 month, though.
Yeah. If you want to,
There's a lot of legal policies as well.
yeah.
So,
I'm not saying we shouldn't look at it. I think that'd be a good idea to have a policy, but I think it's going to be several months at best.
I think if, I don't think making a motion to make a policy would be the correct way to go. And if you want to make a motion to pursue this in another way, I would understand that. Courtney?
Is it possible for us to maybe in our next meeting have a conversation with the attorney directly to hear his feedback? I hate to jump into something where we're going to in the future get in trouble. I feel like we need to have more knowledge, I think.
Okay. Makes sense.
I agree.
So it should be on our agenda next month.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm hearing a lot of consensus around getting the information that we need to make a good decision. You know, because there are, you know, there could be implications down the road that could have an effect, you know, financially and legally for the district. That all makes sense to me. And so if there's no action to be taken, we can definitely bring this up with our legal counsel and schedule time to actually go through and talk about that. And that part would probably be in executive session, would be my thought, but the rest of it we can talk about in open session as we move along.
we go to executive session for confidential attorney-client communication, then we come out.
So how does that sound to the board?
I would agree. Would this be at our next board meeting, or would this be at a special meeting between now and then?
It would probably be at our next board meeting. If we can line it up, I would imagine. Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't.
Can we consider doing the attorney questions ahead of time, so we're using our time wisely?
If you want to submit those questions to me, I will speak with Chris. And it's probably best to send him all the questions at one time, so that way he doesn't charge us each time he has to ask a question.
Right. That's what part of my point is that let's get this laid out clearly, our questions as well as the issue, and make the best of our time.
Okay. All right, well, we'll plan for that for our next meeting. Is there any further questions or discussion?
After our next meeting, will we have some kind of idea as to, I mean, I know we won't have like a firm yes or a no, but some kind of idea to give the Maher family?
I would imagine we'd at least have more of the legal information to at
Okay.
least go by.
A general idea of which way I'm sure that there's probably planning involved.
Yeah.
And I would say for tonight, we're not saying no, we're just saying we need our information and to make sure that we're doing it correctly, right? I mean, we haven't said no.
And we're happy to provide any other further information or support for the board if necessary, so you're welcome to contact us.
If you send me an email, what I can do is if our attorney needs further information, I can convey that to you. So if you just want to shoot me an email, I believe I have your husband's email.
Yes.
That's a good point of contact?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Board of Education suggested that we get a lawyer as well.
Sure.
And we're not saying we're going down that route, but I think this is going to be more of an issue moving into the future. And equity is a huge touch point in the state for education, so I think that it is wise of you to be looking towards the future for our community and our students, because this is the wave of the future. So, thank you for your time.
We also want to make sure we are being financially responsible to our taxpayers as well, and that's the biggest thing we have to do. So we have to weigh all things at the same time. I understand.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Letter for discussion. Brian? I just want to say a couple things about this that I heard there was a letter going around, which is fine, but I think that this would have been better sent out ahead in advance instead of minutes before the meeting to everyone. I don't see the effectiveness of doing it this way. But Meredith, you have a question?
Yeah, has the letter been sent to the other board members or only you and Chris? I mean, I don't have a copy of it.
Neither do I.
I don't know who Ryan shared it with.
Yeah, I will forward it to you, I guess.
Ryan shared it out. I was under the assumption that she had shared it out with all board members as well, since she was be discussing this in the board.
I'm sorry about that, Meredith, and to you others. I really did think I sent it to all the board members. I had several emails I was looking through, so I apologize for the last minute and for not including you. That was not intentional. And the reason it was last minute is because we were waiting to hear back from some folks that wanted to add their names onto it.
Okay. So I would suggest, future items for discussion and on the agenda, send them me or Chris, so that way everyone can get the information ahead of time. Even if it is before the meeting, we can make sure that this stuff is sent out. So you wanted this on the agenda. Did you wish to speak about it? On it?
I did, yes. I felt as though after the last meeting, it was important that, I realized that a vote was made and I realized a decision was made, but I really feel like the school board is responsible for being the voice of their community. And we've had a lot of parents and community members, not just parents, but taxpayers, feeling frustrated and wanting to voice their concerns as well. So we thought that, a letter representing that would be effective. And I think, like I said, it's just a way of letting you know that people have these opinions. They want to be heard. And I'd like it to be taken into consideration when we're making some of these decisions. Like I pointed out earlier, I think that it'd be nice to be more involved and get our parents more involved in these decisions that are impacting us so much. And Jody might speak more on that as well. But again, I do apologize for the last minute and not including the board members. That definitely was not intentional, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, and then, and also in regards to, open meeting law and so, like I said, it's best to either, notify the chair or the superintendent and, but anyway.
Right, and I think we all have, I think communication should definitely be on our next agenda, because I do think there's a lot of lack of communication and maybe some confusion on how things are communicated. So maybe we can, talk about that more going forward.
Of course.
I love that. Thank you.
I have a quick question. So I'm just reading this letter for the first time now, and I'm confused by the last sentence that says, please honor the 4-3 vote. Do you know what that means?
Courtney, that was just an email I shared. We're not discussing. That's
a different letter.
Oh.
Brian sent your letter. The email that I forwarded was just a parent asked me to forward to you.
Gotcha.
I wasn't necessarily supposed to. Brian forwarded your letter to discuss.
Okay, so we don't actually have the letter that is being discussed right now.
I sent it to you.
Yes, it has arrived in my inbox just a few moments ago.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
The 4-3 vote, that it was 4 against unmasking and 3-4 unmasking.
No, that's not what the vote was about. The vote was delegating the authority to our superintendent to make the COVID-related decisions.
Right, and that was the point that we were making, was that unfortunately we had hoped it would be more of a school board policy, working with the community members that feel like they need to have some input.
I mean, my take is that I think that's what the special meeting was for. I mean, we heard the public, we voiced our decisions, we voted, and that's our communication, that's our vote. I feel like we all had a chance to say what we wanted, listen to everybody's thoughts and opinions, and we have to keep everybody into consideration. And I don't know, I felt that it was pretty diplomatic myself.
The meeting was diplomatic, I agree with you, but it was very rushed and not many people knew about it. It wasn't posted in Middletown. Several parents that I spoke to had no idea there was a meeting. So yes, I agree with you, but at the same time, I think, again, it was just too quick and not enough involvement and not enough notification went out there. And I don't think a lot of people were aware of it. And people still had continued opinions after that meeting that I find to be important.
So Ryan, with regard to posting, we went through the regular posting at this special meeting as we do with all meetings. So whether or not a town clerk or someone else may not post that, we went through the regular procedure. We met on the requirements for posting with that. So it was posted. It was on the GRCSU website, on the calendar. It was on there as well. So.
Meredith?
And while I understand there are quite a few people on your list, many of them are from one household, and I also heard from other households on the other side of the vote, and we are representatives of our communities, and they are pretty, diverse. And when you, I'm sure there's a big group on the masking or unmasking issue or the self-decision but it's not the whole story. And I agree with Courtney. I think we sat and listened, and it's a lot more than a few families that are upset and have a lot of concerns. As a board, we have a lot of decisions we have to make, but we hire professionals to help us make them. And in this case, we hire our superintendent, and I feel like having he should have our support. He's quite honestly earned our support over the last year, making the decisions he has made. So I think that needs to be considered also. I'm not a professional leadership person. I don't have a disposal of HIPAA situations. I don't know what's happening in all of our schools to the details that our superintendents or our building principals have. So I really think we made a good decision. And if you want to, oh, there you go.
Jody?
Just speaking from being, I mean, this was my second meeting, the meeting that we were just, the meeting where we voted on Chris, and I didn't quite know all the rules. I'm still learning the rules. I'm still watching YouTube videos to try to figure out how to do these meetings correctly. But I certainly, I walked away from last week's meeting. I felt like we heard from a lot of the community, and we did hear both sides. In my opinion, one side we heard more of than the other, but tonight it was the other way. It flip-flopped. So, and then all of a sudden there was this motion, and I wasn't sure exactly what we were voting for, how long we were giving Chris this power, what this power all encompassed, like what all decisions could he make. I'm still not sure. I mean, I voted against it, so it doesn't really matter. But and so then when I walked away, I happened to get the email from Christine, and as I'm looking through this PowerPoint, I mean, one of the slides says the purpose of community engagement is to ensure that school improvement is done with the community, not to the community. And I certainly felt like, you know, we heard the community's concerns and then didn't really take a full scope of consideration for the community. And I mean, I went door to door speaking to people, just trying to get a feel. And I genuinely can hear and empathize with both sides completely. And I think that there are, I'm not sure, Ryan, where the letter stands, I don't know, but I think there's maybe 53 different signatures. And some of them are couples, so maybe 20, 25, 26 parents of Middletown Springs. I mean, that's a really big portion of the school. And yes, there's the other side, sure. But, you know, isn't it our job to hear from the parents, maybe, you know, take a survey, how are they feeling, or give them, you know, some kind of data-driven input where we can look at it and go, what is the pulse of these parents? These are their children, not ours. And perhaps, you know, my opinion would get voted right out. And I would just have to live with that because, you know, I mean, that's how it goes in a democracy. But I certainly I wasn't sure kind of what I walked away going, what happened? Was that supposed to happen? Was that legally what was supposed to happen? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So just maybe revisiting it I think would be nice. And if we are going to do a vote to, you know, give Chris the power to make these decisions, okay, what all does that entail? How long does he get this power, or whatever? Or maybe we look at, you know, different policies that need to be put in place in the school? Do we want to do different policies about social distancing or cleaning, or do we need more cleaning staff? I mean, I don't know. You know, there are lots of things that can be considered other than, do we mandate a mask policy or do we, you know, not? I mean, there are many other options, I think.
And I think by giving the superintendent the authority to do that, you know, takes policy that would take time to develop it, you know. If, I don't know if you're thinking of a policy that says no masks?
No.
Or, okay, so.
Just parent choice. I would never say no masks. I mean, you know, parents should be able to choose if they want to send their child to school with a mask or in a bubble, if they want to do that.
So masks optional.
Right.
If I could jump in, I've had my.
No, actually, public comment is closed, Sarah, sorry.
No problem.
But the concept behind creating policy, you know, from looking at the AOE's memorandum and the guidance from the Department of Health, it talks about creating a policy or getting the superintendent, even the recommendations from the VSBA. You know, in those regards, it's for a masking policy and not for a mask optional policy. And none would support non-masking. And that's what I got from it. But when you read it, it almost looks like districts can create their own policy on masks. But, you know, so, and they can, you know, and I believe there is one district that has in the state of Vermont. And it leads to, you know, basically the conversation that we had last week and tonight. We're talking about it again. So I don't know what, you know, what more could be done. You know, I think just like what some of the other board members said, we talked about it and we listened to the public and the board voted. So I think I understand, you know, there's no time limit on the motion, you know, so we just have to just take it, you know, as the guidance comes through at this point. Amanda, I think you had your hand up first. Meredith?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry. So I've been debating, and I wasn't really going to share this publicly, but okay. This meeting and last meeting, I've heard a lot of people say, like, COVID isn't here. It's not in our community. And I did vote against our decision last week. So this might sound kind of awkward from me, but I have a family of 5, and all 5 of us are positive for COVID right now. And what this has taught me is I truly believe my kids missed their first day of school today, and that's really unfortunate. I'm really bummed about that, but I also understand that we have to be safe. We have to do what we have to do. However, I truly believe if we were to test our students, and I'm not saying we should, but if we were to test our students, I think 60% of our kids in the school are walking around with COVID, and I don't know if that means they should or shouldn't be masked. I'm not pro-masks, but I don't know what that means, because as I sit here, 2 of my 3 children have 0 symptoms. My family has not been super sick. However, my cousin and her family are positive, and her mother-in-law was just put on a bed tonight. So I understand it's affecting everybody differently, but what I'm finding in our experience that I think we need to consider when we're talking about this choice is that if you were to look at my kids right now, you wouldn't think I had COVID. My kids are not sick at all. If the doctors didn't tell me to get my kids tested at day 7, I wouldn't know my kids are positive. They're not sick. So that's what I'm seeing, and that's what makes me. I would love to unmask. I'm in favor of unmasking our kids. I'm in favor of parent choice, but I'm also a little stumped right now because how many other kids like mine don't look or act like they have COVID, and it does affect everybody differently. Like I said, I know someone who's put on a ventilator today, and here we are fine. But I guess I wanted to share that because it is here, and just me and my fiance, I know of 11 people right now in our immediate circle that are positive for COVID, and no, they're not all super sick, but it is here. But I'm also in favor of choice. I just felt like I should share that.
Okay, thank you. Meredith?
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear that, Amanda. And I wish you and your family health. I just wanted to say, I feel that having the decision not be a policy, we have a lot more flexibility to pivot to whatever the actual situation is in terms of how much COVID is or isn't in our communities. That's the way I look at by empowering, and by the way, Chris already had that authority. We just clearly delegated it in a motion. But to have a policy is just very definitive. It's just as we discussed in our last situation where we were talking about creating a new policy, a half hour ago, and how involved it is. And having Chris with that authority, he can pivot. He can see things are going one way or the other and go with the advice as well as the facts, and not just the people he knows that may or may not have said they have it or don't have it. So anyway, that's all. I won't go on. Thank you.
Okay, Ryan?
I just wanted to say, I won't go on and on, but I just felt as though it was a really quick motion in the last meeting. It kind of actually caught me off guard that the motion was made, because I felt like there was a lot more discussion there, and I just feel like we're kind of shutting off our community by not continuing this conversation. I think it's a conversation that's taking place in a lot of school boards across our state and many other ones. I know it's a hard conversation to have because we all really feel strongly, but I really do think that we have to involve our parents more. I mean, I don't see why this has to rest on Chris's shoulders alone. We had a summer school policy in place that worked great. I don't think that developing a policy would have been that difficult. I know we had talked about maybe some liabilities involved, so I'd like to keep this on the table because I want to know more about it. If we end up closing the issue tonight, it is what it is, but I just feel like I was elected to represent the parents of this town, and I just think that we all felt like we just got a door slammed in our face, and I just don't feel like that's right. So if we can continue discussion, that would be great. If you're going to say no, then I guess it's no.
I just want to clarify, Ryan, we do not have a summer school policy. We were following the Department of Health's guidance, just as we've been doing all along. So the same guidance that we're following now, we're following over the summer as well. So we have not wavered anyway. So there's not a policy. It was just the Department of Health's guidance was still in place, and we were following those recommendations as well. So just to clarify that.
George?
Ryan, again, I'm very sorry for the sickness in your family. But I think that points out the problem with COVID. It doesn't sit there and wait for a meeting to make a change. Chris is our point person for the health of our children. We're all responsible for that. But in July, the variant wasn't rearing its ugly head to the extent it is now. We can't have a board meeting, much less a survey of parents every time something happens. We need to make decisions on the spot. we've reiterated, as it's been pointed out, that Chris is the person to do that. We certainly have oversight and we have input, but this stuff is getting worse. It's not getting better. We need to keep our guard up. So, and I think, you know, the way it's in your family right now just points that out.
It's Amanda's family, and I'm sending well wishes to her as well.
Okay.
But I do think it's an ongoing issue and that changes do happen on a regular basis. So maybe that means more meetings for us. But it is what it is. We have to make sure that we're doing the best job we can do.
Absolutely. We got to keep up with it, but we got to try to stay ahead of it.
Jody?
Does anyone have an idea of what it would look like when we were ahead of it? I mean, we continue to test perfectly healthy people. We're 87% immunized in the state, other than 12 and under, which are not the are not the ones that carry it the most, are not the ones that die from it the most, are not the most at risk. As long as we continue to test perfectly healthy people, COVID is not going to go away. It's not. So what does it look like? What does it look like when we go, okay, we can take the masks off?
Good question.
Wish we knew. I wish we knew.
That's again French. I don't know.
Because in my opinion, when the governor says there's no longer an emergency mandate to wear masks in any of the public buildings, it's recommended, there's no mandate. Then the governor is saying, you know, there's still COVID, there's always going to be COVID. We still have to be careful. But people aren't dying of COVID every day. It's not rampantly killing people across the state. Or else he would put, you know, he would issue an emergency mandate. I mean, because no one has the answer for what does it look like. We are the most vaccinated state in all of the United States, I think, or one or two. I mean, across the pond in Europe and France, no one is wearing masks. They're eliminating mask mandates. They're proving that the virus goes straight through the masks. What does it look like when we can unmask our kids?
I think, in my opinion, when health is concerned, we really need to look towards the agency of education for guidance. I don't think it's in our hands to make those decisions for not only our kids, but, you know, our community members, because it's really not just affecting our kids. It's they're bringing it home and they're spreading it around. And like Amanda said, there's no symptoms, and we're just opening up the possibility of creating more issues than we need to. And I just think the agency of education is our guidance. They're the ones that have the information that we don't necessarily have.
And could I do believe if vaccines were available for all individuals, kids included, I think things may look a little bit different right now. I think, you know, when we look into February or January when we have vaccines available for all kids, we may need to see different stats, different tone from individuals. But right now, we have a large percent of our population, you know, the student population here doesn't have access to vaccines. So you asked what that may look like. I really do believe, because we saw, you know, the springtime, it was really around adults. And but like I said, things have shifted, and from a school-based perspective, we have a large number of students who are in buildings without access to vaccines, which for some families, they're okay with that. Even when the vaccine's available, they choose not to vaccinate the child. That's a personal choice. But I do believe if we, like you said, we heard in September, we heard October, now they're pushed back to early winter, whenever that, that vaccine is available. And, I do believe schools may look a little different. I think then we can start to take a look at, families have, optional vaccines, as we look at a mask optional policy.
I don't believe that to be true. I don't believe that.
You asked my opinion. I'm just sharing. I don't tell you you're wrong. I just said
I don't
You
believe
ask
that
the question.
80%, I don't believe that 80% of parents are going to vaccinate their 12 and under children.
That's another concern. I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it is. And so I don't think that we're going to reach that threshold. And so basically that means that our children will just remain masked for the rest of their education.
I can't say yes or no, I don't know. I've been saying this a lot, we really go one day at a time, because memos could come out tomorrow that completely change things. This has been a fluid situation, and I think, well, I appreciate you, I've been dealing with this for 18 months.
Yeah.
And this is something which I deal with, Valentine's Day, I'm doing contact tracing. Sunday night, I'm handling this, I make 200 phone calls. I don't think I had a good night's sleep in a year and a half dealing with this. This is my life.
Appreciate that, yeah.
I don't get to check out and just be a dad. I have to look at this, and I go to bed every night concerned about the safety, health, well-being, not just of our students, but our staff. That's a lot. And so when I take this very seriously, so when I make these decisions, and I make these recommendations, these with the health and the safety of our student staff. And if someone wants to fire me, let me go. I can sleep well at night saying, you know what? You fired me because I erred on the side of caution because I was being overly safe with your kids, as opposed to being cavalier with your children's health and well-being. And that's just where I'm at now, so.
I understand, Chris. I would never say for you to get fired, and I'm sure that you've done an outstanding job, and I couldn't.
I'm just saying, you asked the question, Jerry, what it looks like, and I said, every single day I deal with this.
Right.
Phone calls, the flow of information. I think you would be amazed at how much information we deal with on a daily basis, whether it's from the school nurse, the School Nurse Association, the VSBA, from Dan French, just this constant influx of information we have to process. And while I would love for the board to take this on and sit back and just say, you know what, hey, give me a week off, and you guys can take the voicemails, you can take the emails, you can take it all, that'd be great. But to pivot, and it's not something I sit by myself and do and read the data. We have been following the Department of Health guidance since day one. And that's what I know there's contradictory language. There always has been. I know there are things that are confusing. I get it. When you talk about the outside and inside, as an individual, I understand it too. I'm just as frustrated as anybody with Governor Scott, with Secretary French, because of the fact that I'm originally from Illinois, and whether you agree with Governor Pritzker or not, at least he took a stance and said, here's what's going to happen, and then people dealt with it. Here, the fact that they just said, well, throw it back on local schools, local districts, has made this worse, because what we're doing is, instead of focusing on our students, their education, health, and well-being, we're fighting against each other. And that's what's frustrating me, is the fact that we look at this, and we're all here for the same reason. I understand where it comes from. I understand where Ron's come from. The 70-some people on the list. I get it as a parent. But I have to put on a different hat as a superintendent and really take a look at, as that duty of care provision, and see the fact that we have the Department of Health, the CDC, and the Vermont Association, Pediatrics Association. I always get the acronym name incorrect, so I apologize. But those are the baseline for us. And that's what we look at in terms of, that's the minimum. And if we look at, moving back and forth, we have to do that. There's an ebb and flow. And I would love to involve the board, on all these decisions, but it's difficult to involve the board on these different decisions when you get, a memo at 4 o'clock at night that has to pivot for tomorrow, and we have to make that decision. And that's part of the operational, that's part of the reason why I am hired, is to make those decisions. And I know full well when I sit there and make the recommendation, I am well aware of the people that are angry one way or the other. And for every email I get about, hey, we should be wearing masks, I get an email saying they should be wearing masks, we should be doing more. It's been a politicized issue too long. I think where I'm looking at in terms of the fact that I'm like, fine, if we can find a way to unify around this, but we have to be able to pivot. And like I said, we have great school nurses, we have great building administrators, there's a lot there, but it's difficult. And I'm frustrated, I apologize, but it's the fact that this is 17 months of stuff that I'm dealing with. And yet people will come in and say, well, have you thought about this? Of course I have. And look at it, of course I have. All right, I have people sitting there sending me emails, call me, a baby killer. Are you going to give the eulogy at my child's funeral? That's what I'm getting. I mean, I get that, but it's like this decision. And so it's like, we're here. We made this decision. Let's move on. Like I said, if we want to scrutinize on a monthly basis, that's fine. That's what the board can do. But like, we have to come to a point in time, we have to unify and move forward. That's what I'm asking for. I'll be quiet, I'm done.
I mean, I'm sorry. Did you want to speak?
Well, Amanda's had her hand raised up for a
Go
while.
ahead,
right?
go ahead.
Sorry. First, Chris, thank you. I support everything you just said. I absolutely agree with you. I understand. And I guess I just want to clarify that when I made the statement about my family, that's exactly what I was saying, is that, you know, COVID is here. It is a problem. And if I hadn't been notified of a contact, I wouldn't have tested my family. And it just makes me wonder how many other families are COVID positive as well. So even though I am in favor of choice, I also understand that, like I said, there's somebody who I know close to me who's been intubated tonight. So I understand, and please, I'm not trying to, you know, argue or go against anybody, and I can't imagine what you've been through. I know has not been easy, but I wanted to take that moment to clarify that when I made that statement, I wasn't saying that, you know, COVID wasn't bad, it wasn't making us sick. We're lucky that it's not. Some people it is, but instead, my point was that it is here, and I just think a lot of us don't know because I didn't know it was in my house.
Meredith?
We're so far past what I originally was going to talk about, but thank you, Chris, for shedding some light on some of the issues with making these decisions. And I'd like to remind, you know, people that we are not under a state of emergency, and a state of emergency isn't only about wearing masks. It includes a tremendous amount of power that the governor takes over and can affect so many aspects of our state. And by shedding that, and by no longer being in the state of emergency, he is delegating our leaders to do things. And yes, we are leaders, quote unquote, on this board, but again, we've hired Chris, and like I said, I want to put my support behind him.
I 100% support Chris's efforts too. I can't imagine the job, and I can hear your stress, and you need a vacation. And it's too much for one person to carry and to make decisions for an entire GRCSU. I mean, I 100% agree with that. I would also stand with the opinion that it is not the Agency of Education's job to take care of my child's health or to assure my child's health. It is my doctor's job. It is the doctor's job.
But it is their job to assure their health.
The Agency of Education has to deal with many other things like lawyers and who's liable, and you know, they're making decisions based on a million things that have really nothing to do with health. Not that they don't care about the kids, that's not what I'm saying, but they have to weigh a million different things, and parents are weighing their child's health. And some of them are putting COVID at the top, always. I do not want my child to get COVID, period. And some of them are saying, I have a list a mile long that's bigger than my child getting a cold from COVID. Or their child has had COVID, and so they have T-cell immunities, or they have whatever. That's all I'm saying, is that every parent, each parent knows their child and knows what the top things are that their child needs. And it's their job and the health professional's job to keep them safe, their health safe. And it is the Agency of Education's job to focus on educating them. That is my argument.
Well, you're right in a sense, but you're wrong in a sense as well, because all these agencies and Chris and this board are responsible for the health and safety of the kids when they're together. When they're together in school, it's our job to keep them safe. That's not a parental decision.
But you can't keep them safe
As
from
safe
germs.
as we can.
Right. You can't keep them completely safe from germs, even if they wear masks all the time. they're going to get germs. So I agree, we need to sanitize. We need to do a long list of things. We need to make sure guns aren't in the schools. We need to lock the doors and not let people in. There's a long, long list.
The top health officials in this country, as well as this state, recommend wearing masks in school. You're saying they're wrong.
No, and I'm saying you can recommend wearing masks. I'm not saying you shouldn't recommend masks. All I am asking is that you don't mandate that children will get disciplined or get in trouble if they don't have a mask on their face. I'm just saying you don't mandate it, that's all. I'm not saying that you can't recommend it, you can't strongly recommend it.
But if half the students are not wearing it, it doesn't do anywhere near the same amount of good.
I mean, I have seen my daughter's mask, and I don't know that it's doing any good. I think it's doing more harm than good. But the mask is not going to protect our children from COVID forever, from germs forever. I mean, when they go outside and are spitting all over each other, and they come back inside and put a mask on, it's pretend.
You know, what happens outside is entirely different than what happens inside. When you're outside, it's like dropping a piece of dye into the ocean compared to dropping it into your bathtub. It is the germs are diffused in a much larger way. And yes, it is still a risk, but we're trying to mitigate the risk. We're trying to make it a little less risky. You're right, it's still going to transfer, especially if they're climbing all over each other. And we're going to try and do the best we can. I just don't understand why you think that it's okay for people to make a decision to unmask their kids at school by risking other children's health and other families' health because, yeah, they'll catch the variant. Maybe they'll create a new variant. You know, I have a really hard time understanding why you don't think it's helping to have them masked when they're inside at school.
I have a hard time understanding what the difference is, Meredith. They're outside, they're hugging.
What is
the difference?
Did you not hear what I just said?
I heard exactly what you said.
Hey, you guys are talking at the same time and we can't hear you. Can we one at a time, please? Ryan?
Sorry, I'll raise my hand next time. I don't understand what the difference is. Yes, if we're spread out outside, yes, I'm sure germs are a lot less likely to get spread, but we are not spread out outside. We are hands-on. We were right in front of each other today. I had conversations with almost every single teacher at that school today, in person, close up, no mask. I hugged all those kids. My kids hugged kids. I don't see the difference. If we're 6 feet apart outside, sure, but they're not.
I'm certainly not
Jody?
suggesting that the masks don't help. Maybe they do help. Maybe they help 10% or 30% or 60%. What I'm saying is that the mask is a bigger risk to many children for many different reasons. We're weighing the risk. So my son may not speak until he's 5 or 6 or 7. He may not learn to read. But he won't get a germ from COVID. That's what I'm saying. It might help.
You have mask exceptions, Jody. They're developmental.
Right, but I'm not the only person. I'm not the only person.
I understand.
And not everyone can qualify for a mask exemption.
There are instances even in the guidance in the state that if items during the course of the day, whether it be for speech or things along the line, that students can then remove their mask for community purposes. And that's
I know,
so it's nice if we just put that. I'm just explaining that it's what the situation, but there are provisions
But I
in
have
place.
7 children in my house. I have birth children, I have foster children, and I have adopted children. And I could get an exemption for 4 of them. And then how do I explain to the 3 that do not have special needs you have to wear a mask. But he can't hear and he can't speak. So he doesn't have to. It's not okay. It's not okay. My kids go to school to learn how to read and learn how to speak and learn how to be social with their friends. And that is more important to me than if they pick up a germ or the flu. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to outlaw masks. I'm not saying that my kids' needs are more important than someone else's or that I want to kill someone's grandmother. I'm just saying that it's not black and white. And parents know their children.
Meredith?
It is far from black and white, but you are essentially saying your needs are more important than the health of other children and or families. That's what you're doing, and you are correct. We need to do what we can to support the kids who are struggling the most with mask wearing. I totally understand that. I totally get that. But at the risk of simply saying no, I just, you're talking, so this goes back to why I support Chris making these decisions. Because he's not talking, even though he is a parent, as his own specific needs. He's looking at the wider story with all the details of all the different families and all the different schools.
If I were worried about just my children, I would file for exemptions and move on. It's not just my children. There's a long list of parents with these exact same issues and issues that I haven't heard yet.
Well, I've also heard from parents who are really happy that their kids are going back to school with masks on. Their kid, they were petrified to send their school, our schools, if people were going to be allowed to be unmasked. So there's a lot to it.
Ryan?
I completely agree, Meredith. I think there is a lot to it, and I'm sure you've heard from parents that speak that way too. And again, the last time tonight, I just want to reiterate that same thing as Jody. I'm not against masks either, if that's what you choose to do. All we're saying is it should be up to us. And I really feel like in Wells and Middletown, when you take a walk through that school, unfortunately I haven't been able to do that in a while, but there's a lot of space, there's potential, there's things we can do. And I really think that we could have tried to find some middle ground.
Okay. Well, I think it was we had a pretty good discussion on this, and I know I heard from a few of you that the motion that we set last week came out of nowhere, felt rushed, and so I think that we still made that motion, and it still is, I guess, active, you could call it. So, right, if you just wanted to have this discussion, just to continue on the discussion of all the things that maybe we missed last meeting, that's fine. I think it's time to move on tonight, but if I don't see where board members would want to go or continue to talk about this. I understand everyone has their own opinions and thoughts, and I respect all of them, as I hope all the other board members do as well. But My thought, I don't even know if I should weigh in on what I think about all this, but I still agree that, we put the power in the superintendent's control. He's the person who is making these decisions and has the information before the board could have it. And for the best of all the students, and the way I see this as a whole, if we compare what's going on now to last year, and yes, we had a state of emergency last year, but if we look at what our students can do versus what they can't, I think right now the criteria is just to wear a mask. They can play sports again. They can eat in the lunchroom. And I understand that in some cases it might be a health decision or a health choice, but if we looking at what our students couldn't do last year versus now, I think things are better, and they should and hopefully will continue to get better. And it's a small ask to wear a mask is my thought. So, but I think
Did the guidance change between summer school and now? The guidance that you were,
Yes.
they had dropped like the mask mandate and then they
The
said
guidance
they
was
recommended
solely
again.
for summer, and then as it moved into school year with Delta variant, that's when the guidance, the recommendation shifted.
Once again, things were much different 1st of July, from the beginning of the summer program to the end, how things are ramping up. So that's a huge thing.
all right. Well, I think it's time to move on. If there's no further thoughts or discussion, I'm sure we can continue to talk about this for another hour or two. But okay. So, policy. Did everyone receive the policy? Yeah.
I don't know if this, I was late to the meeting, so I don't know if this was added under the new section, but I noticed in the email that we have that there is a letter or a donation in memory of Eli, and I wasn't sure if we should talk about it.
I apologize for that. I should have mentioned it in my principal's report. I wanted to make sure that the board had known that we were donated $5,000 to our GIST fund in memory of Eli McDermott. So there was a check and a letter, so I wanted to make sure you had it. I apologize. I meant to bring that up in my principal's report.
To answer your question, Meredith or Courtney?
Yeah, I just thought it would be nice to acknowledge them. They were a really large part of our community in Wells, and it was such a tragedy, and I just think it would be really nice to acknowledge him and the family.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. My apologies.
Yes, thank you, Courtney. I seemingly missed that too. There it is. Okay.
Actually, I do now that we haven't left that section, how do we have like a separate fund that is just, I want to make sure that that money is really going to be allocated to that specific, do we have a GIST fund?
We do, yes, specifically, yes.
Okay, I have my hand up over here too. Eli is Jennifer McDermott's son. She's my first cousin. And it's very important to our family that the money is allocated appropriately.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't see why it wouldn't be.
I'm sorry, I
I
can't
said I
hear you.
don't see why it wouldn't be.
Oh, no, it was indicated that it would be used for just students, for students to be able to access the program who might not otherwise be able to access it.
Okay.
And so that will be absolutely followed through with.
Well, a special thanks to the McDermott family. And all right, policy. We have a couple policies for a first read. Community use of school facilities. Does anybody have any questions about this policy? Again, this is the first read. Oh.
Just looking at it, is it missing something? It says, will hold the Wells Village School, the Wells Springs Unified Union School District, or Greater Rutland County. It doesn't mention Middletown Springs School. In the middle there, probably need to add that in. Because this is a policy for both schools, correct?
Meredith, are you referring to the application?
Yeah.
Oh, so the application was.
Oh, you're right, sorry, yeah, I understand, okay.
Yeah, that was just Wells Village. I threw Middletown Springs. Obviously, that's something which the board approved that to be used this for both, and we've cleaned it up.
Okay, yeah, no, sorry, you're right,
Yeah, I was going to get to that next.
yeah, sorry, I'm out of order.
That's fine. And so the building and facilities use application came about because the policy committee was reviewing the H2. And so this has gone out for a first read, and then Corey Valley had adopted or created they've actually worked on their own building and facility use application, and we found out that Wells has one, Wells has one, but Middletown doesn't. I believe that, and so we have this tonight, basically to just kind of review. I don't believe we need to do. It's not like a policy. This is something that we can change and adapt to fit the needs of both schools. So and it's something we don't have to do tonight. So really, it's kind of for information. But if any board members have any suggestions or anything, Meredith.
So does Rutland Southwest didn't have a policy that covered both Wells and Middletown? I mean, I ask because I know I've been involved in using the building for craft fairs and things like that. So I feel like they did have a policy that we worked under.
Okay.
Rick, doesn't that sound at all familiar? Or am I just thinking of the application? Maybe?
Yeah, I think
It's an application, Meredith, because there's an SU policy, but then there are.
Well, I know, but there might have been a Rutland Southwest policy, is what I'm saying.
I can look, Meredith, and see if I can find one back at the office. The files, if you want.
It just wouldn't make sense that only Wells, well, it might, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah. I guess one question I had is, Oh, never mind. Answered it by reading. All right, well, I imagine there's some small edits in here. Typos I see. All right. I'm not hearing any changes or edits from the board, so we'll move on to weapons and firearms policy. This policy was actually just a firearms policy, and we ended up finding they're basically weapons into the firearms policy, which I think made it a better policy. So again, it's just the first read. We'll bring it back in October again for a second read and adoption. So if you have any questions about that. And the flag statement. You sent that out? That was sent out, right? Yes, it was. So at the last GRCSU meeting, or the one before that actually, it was requested that the policy committee work on a flag policy, and basically the committee came up with instead of a flag policy, a flag statement. And did everyone get that this afternoon, by the way?
I can't find it.
Is this like the No River policy?
No. So basically the statement is a statement. So what the committee came up with is they decided to come up with a statement in lieu of a policy, so that way the committee can work on a policy and effectively create a policy that is rushed. So, oh man, I don't see.
I don't find it.
You did, oh, okay.
I think it's sent out.
I think Christine sent it out. But. So what? Developing a flagpole policy is one that I think was discussed last fall at the SU policy board. And I think one of the things that was discussed was the fact that one, it's a very complicated process, very nuanced process. One that would look differently, obviously, maybe say Corey Valley than I work with Well Springs and from the town. And so as we begin that discussion, as we invite community members for inputs on what this may look like within each of our respective districts, we said we need to have something in place in each of our boards that if they request something from the board, how we should handle that. Because in the past, there was a discussion or a request, and we don't have a policy necessarily that provides the criteria for either accepting that request or denying that request. And so therefore, what the policy group said that while we are working with, or developing this policy for our respective boards, that we would have a placeholder, which essentially was there, if I'm wrong, or I think Ryan was there as well for this part, that the American flag and the Vermont state flag would be the only flags flown while we developed this policy. And that was our statement, so we would not be at that time entertaining requests until we had a flagpole policy in place with our boards. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
Ryan or Eric,
Yes. Yeah. And hold on, I'm gonna,
Because there's currently no policy?
There currently is no policy, and so we just felt that it was better if each of the boards has a statement said that this is how we'll handle a request while we're developing policy. So basically that at this time, we all get basically the only flag we follow will be the American flag and the state flag as per the flags, the statutes of flag code. And then when a flag policy is put in place, then we'll share, and then we'll on our own request as per the policy.
hold on a second, I'm gonna. Got it right here. I'm just gonna copy and paste so everyone can read it really quick. It's not very long. And I think that.
If you want screen share if you want.
I'm just trying to find it first because I've got so many emails, it's not funny.
Eric, I just forwarded you what I had that I think is what you're referring to. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, that's not the right one. That was the original
okay.
one. And what we did is we had, we basically had a committee member just kind of come up with like a working rough draft. And so, you know, other boards might come up with something, something different. So,
Well, let's say screen share that if you want.
okay, yeah, if you can, because I mean, it was sent this morning, so.
Is that correct view, Eric?
Yes.
You want to read it all out?
What's that?
You want to read it all out for everyone? So.
You are, or you want me to?
Sure, if you want. Go ahead.
Okay. It says flags displayed on any facilities overseen by the, say, Wellsprings Unified Union School District will only include the United States flag and the Vermont state flag at the time of approval of this statement. Facilities within the Wellsprings District will keep with state and federal guidelines for flag display on public facilities with proper etiquette during school hours and after school hours, weather permitting. Ordered by the President of the United States or Governor to commemorate a tragic event or death, the flag shall be flown at half-mast. The superintendent's timely approval is required to fly the flag at half-mast at any other time. Future requests to fly other types of flags will be considered, but will not be flown until an adopted flag policy is in place. I guess it's not that short. The only thing I would like to change on this is future requests to fly other types of flags will be considered, but will not be flown until an adopted flag policy is in place. Where it says future request to fly other, would be considered. I think that kind of,
Mhm.
it kind of contradicts because if a board considered a flag and then came up with a policy, and then that policy actually doesn't take into consideration, it's kind of, it's just kind of a waste of time and kind of just maybe leads the person requesting it on. So, my thought would be to just edit that to say, flag request to fly other types of flags will not be considered until an adopted flag policy is in place.
So we're trying to suggest to say future requests to fly the types of flags will be considered when an adopted flag policy is in place.
There you go.
Future requests to fly the types of flags will be considered when an adopted flag policy is in place.
Yeah, that works.
It's just,
Is this in response to any requests?
so there's, we had a request last year in one of our other districts, and I think the board discussed the criteria for which it was approved, kind of was not as solid as it would have liked it to have been. I think as we moved forward, we did realize, obviously, when you look at, the concern was taking from a K through 6 building may be a lot different than say through a high school facility in terms of discussions, curriculum, what's going on in the world. So instead of looking at really an SU-wide policy, I think the policy committee said, well, we really need to kind of go back and really look at within our districts what we feel is appropriate, but also not just within that group, we need to really involve community member stakeholders and really try to understand what that policy will look like. We do know Mill River had spent a lot of time in place. They have a policy which does honor requests, but there's a process that one must go through even to be, for board consideration, and the board still has final say. But some members of the policy said, well, that may work better for the high school, but we like to see a different version. So that's kind of where we thought, as we spent some time, because we are going to have to spend some time talking with Dave Youngs over at Mill River. They'd spent better part of a year and a half looking at this policy, and like I said, there are a lot of things to be considered with this, and it's not just something to be taken lightly. And so we felt that to avoid putting ourselves in a situation where maybe in the past where a request comes before the board, we're like, well, how do we say yes or how do we say no? Because we don't really have criteria, that we have this statement in place that says we're not going to say yes, we commit to saying yes or no in the future, but right now, as we're developing policy, this is what we're going with. And we may find that some boards, may want to keep a policy that's very similar to this, or want to open things up just depending upon the board. But I think that's a longer, lengthier discussion. But we've just felt that as school starts, and just consider the current climate, that we may have some requests and how best to address them, and just be upright, forthcoming, and say that we're not denying or saying no, but the bottom line is we just don't have the criteria that as a board we feel as a leader say yes or no at this time.
Okay, thank you.
And I understand this is kind of short notice and late notice, so if, I understand if the board doesn't want to approve anything tonight, considering that the information wasn't presented in a timely manner. But if you have any suggestions, or are fine with this statement,
I'm fine with the statement. It certainly makes more sense to put a policy in place when there isn't a request laying in the loom, much less controversial that way. So I think it's a great idea.
Can we make a motion then?
yeah.
I'll make a motion to adopt this statement.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Meredith, second by Amanda. Any further discussion on this?
I mean, is this a first reading? We're doing?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not like it's a policy or anything, you know.
It's just a
this-
statement.
It's a statement.
Yeah, it's just a statement so that, you know, we can put it out there. I think, kind of head off inquiries and it just gives policy committee and boards time to, as Chris said, work on something meaningful.
And whatever the policy, the Department Board will replace this. This is just a placeholder.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, who's to say, you know, Corey Valley, Rutland Town, and Wellspring, they could all end up with different flag policies, you know. So Wells Village School doesn't have a flag, you know, where Middletown does. So it might look different, but we'll see. That's those committee meetings are going to be fun.
Could I just ask a logistical question, just trying to learn how to be on the board?
Of course.
So when something like this, you know, happens, what's next? Like, do you put it on the next meeting agenda? Do you just kind of like stick it in whenever there's time, or?
Like this?
Yeah, like, I'm assuming at some point a policy needs to be made.
The next step would be, we're meeting next week, and this will be the first step of flag policy. I think what my suggestion would be is we really need to make a decision as to whether we go for an SU policy or really start to look at a Wellspring, Corey Valley, Rutland Town, which I do believe the policy committee is going to suggest. And then once we do it, we start setting the logistics of that, and then we'll start to invite board members, parents, committee members to discussion and really move through that. So we'll have like a subcommittee, a policy committee, which will be then to work through this process.
So it's something that we'll just spend a little bit of time on every meeting moving forward or whatever.
Well, what we could do is we could have, you know, have updates. You know, like we said, we have a sub-policy committee, we can update, like, you know, monthly here's where we're at, like we said at first meeting, just, still for those who weren't involved, could be kept up to date in terms of where we're at. And, that's typically how, like, we have a committee, then you break into subcommittees.
Yeah, well, the committee will work on a flag policy. Again, I don't know what it's going to look like. Our last policy committee, you know, I was all thought, okay, we're just going to make a policy that says we're going to fly the American flag and the Vermont flag. And then we started talking about, you know, going this route. So as the policy committee works on it, you know, we can definitely provide updates. And if it gets to a point where there's not a lot of consensus, I think that might be a good time for members on the policy committee to, you know, take this information to the boards and get more input. And ultimately, it could, you know, it could end up with different policies where the committee just says, okay, the individual boards should work on their own policy. If that happens, you know, because there may not be a one-fits-all for the whole supervisory union. If that happens, then we would put it on our agenda to work on, and then just have discussions as we are now. So. Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous. Okay. All right. So we don't have an executive session. And future meeting dates, our next meeting is October 6th. And any other lawful business.
Eric, do you want to mention a potential rescheduled date for the board workshop around Susan Holson?
Yes.
That will be sent out some dates.
Yeah, we'll, so we need to we're going to reschedule Susan Holson to come out. And I think we're going to, Chris and I talked about possibly doing that with another facilitation with Kathy Latenders as part of our, working on the next step of board goals. So I think that would probably be a good time to have a workshop and not have a bunch of board business to do at the same time. So we could end up having probably a special meeting, or not special meeting, but a day set aside for this. And I didn't even have a chance to look at your dates.
And it will meet some of the requirements for DSBA board training, the board members, just so they know. So
What's that?
that will count towards hours for board training.
Board training?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain number of hours that board members have to undergo each year.
I thought that's just board chairs.
That's just the board chair.
Susan wants to, said that they're looking at having boards increase their board training as well with the new influx.
That's a good idea.
Yes.
So it is a very good.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, because outside of board meeting, people get busy, and sometimes it's hard to sit down and.
Yeah, she was saying there's 41 new board members across the state. It's unheard of, so.
Really? That's interesting.
Board members, that's a real attractive job.
A major career.
Well, with all the hybrid and Google stuff, I would imagine that's kind of opened the door for a lot of people.
So the woman from the VSBA can't do this remote. That was why she wasn't able to attend, or?
Primarily, it's definitely something that all board members should be in place. Kind of like how we did our retreat. It's a little bit more effective, but I just think that it was just better to reschedule, and this meeting being a lengthy one as well, we did skip our August meeting, so it was quite a bit to discuss tonight. So I mean, if you look at the time now,
No, it would have been too long.
yeah, it would have been a lot. So yeah, I just it's a good idea, and I like how just having Susan and Kathy in one workshop just makes sense. So, and then, what did Amanda say? The board members stay logged in for discussion after the meeting. What?
That's still considered a meeting.
Do the board members stay? That may take place. And let's see what. It's just an idea.
That still counts as a quorum if we're still all together talking about.
I figure out what she's asking. If she's talking about like after the meeting closes, you mean stay logged on to talk?
Right. Well, she was saying that once the meeting ended, if we could just stay on top, which is still, it is by meeting law, it's still quorum, so
Yeah.
we would not be able to do that.
Oh, yeah. April responded really quick on that. Yeah, no. So a quorum of our board is 4, so that would be against the open meeting laws. So, yeah. But, I mean, valid question. It's, okay. Any other lawful business? So I was thinking, if nobody has anything, I did have something for our next meeting to bring up, and I was thinking about it the other day. It was 3 years ago, the board had decided not to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm trying to remember why. It just maybe had to do with not having a flag there. But I wanted to bring that back for discussion for a future meeting and see what the board thinks. You know, it has been a few years, and so I can't think of anything else. So if nobody has anything else to add, for our next meeting or tonight, motion would be in order to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a second. I guess a lot of people want to hang around, I guess.
Also,
I'll second.
Motion by Jody, second by George. All in favor?
aye.
I
I have a question though, Eric. So.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.